everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Nikita, and on this channel we focus on BIPOC, especially South Asian stories, both in literature and in real life. So we have a lot of book chats, book recommendations, as well as my podcast called Brown People Problems. So for today's video, we're not just going to do a typical October TBR. I wanted to curate a list of books that, in my opinion, make the perfect TBR list for October, depending on the categories and the genres that you like to read in this time of year. So of course, some of these I have read and others I have not. I'll also be reading in the month of October, but hopefully it's something you enjoy. If you are curious about my sweatshirt, it just says look on the bright side, and it's perfect for the month of October and Halloween. This is all that I wear in October, really. But I have an Etsy shop where I've designed this, and it's available there if you want to check it out. It's down below. Okay, so first up, I think one category that almost everybody loves for the fall Halloween season is cozy mysteries. Now, I have made a ton of recommendations in the past on cozy mysteries, and there's some really popular ones on YouTube like Finley Donovan and Vera Wong, but I wanted to share two lesser known recommendations. All right, my first recommendation for cozy mysteries is the Bangalore Detectives Club series by Harini Nagendra. Now, I have talked about these before on my channel. This is the first one, the Bangalore Detectives Club, and this is the second one, Murder Under a Red Moon. If you haven't heard of this author, don't dismiss her. Her books are so fun. So basically, this series follows a young female sleuth, Kaveri Murthy. She is a 19-year-old young woman who's just been married. It is 1920s, India, Bangalore, so different times, different rules. But she's been married, but she doesn't really have much of an interest in just being a homemaker. She wants to learn math and solve mysteries. And so, as you can imagine, she gets kind of caught up in these mysteries and murders that happen, and it's on her to solve them. So it's a very unlikely female protagonist. To me, that is a hallmark of a really good cozy mystery, when it's not just the police solving the murder, right? It's someone who is very unlikely to be wrapped up in this. And Kaveri is such an endearing, lovely protagonist. I absolutely love that. Nothing is too scary or gory in these books, so that's why they feel a little bit more cozy and a little bit more approachable for everyone. And they are very short. They're under 300 pages, which according to me is a perfect length for a mystery thriller. So if you like a bit of historical fiction with unlikely female sleuths, you would actually really love Kaveri and the Bangalore Detectives Club series. Up next, the second recommendation I have for cozy mysteries is the Seem Khan's Inspector Chopra series. Now, I have read the first one. I talked about it in my September wrap-up. I will link that up here as well as down below if you want to check it out. But this is a lesser known series, and I don't know why, because it's great. It is set in present time in Mumbai, and it follows a retired detective, Detective Chopra, who has a baby elephant helping him solve crimes. Now, sounds far-fetched, sure, and cozy mysteries do tend to be a little bit far-fetched. That's what makes them so fun, but it's so endearing. It's so heartwarming to see that relationship. And the mysteries are they read very Agatha Christie type books. I have read the first one. I will be reading the second one in the series, which is The Perplexing Theft of the Jewel in the Crown, where the royal jewels from England come to India for exhibition, and one of them, I'm assuming it's a Kohinoor, gets stolen. And Detective Chopra and his baby elephant are going to solve it. All right, second category of books that everybody loves to read this time of year is a historical retelling or a historical murder mystery. And for that, I'm going to share a series that I discovered a few months ago, actually. If you like Jane Austen, And if you liked all the heroines in Jane Austen and you wish there was something more that they did with their lives, you would love this series, because this is a murder mystery retelling of each and every Jane Austen book. So the book I have here is Sense and Second Degree Murder by Tirzah Price. The first one to this is called Pride and Premeditation, which is the retelling of Pride and Prejudice, and this one is a retelling of Sense and Sensibility. And I haven't read this, so I will be reading it this month, but I really enjoyed Pride and Premeditation. It has all the same characters. The story is just a little bit different because it involves a murder. In this one, Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood investigate the suspicious death of their father. I really enjoyed the first one in this because it's really like a Regency romp, but with a lot of like a thriller elements in it, and the characters do end up with the same people that they end up with in the original Austen series, so it's not a big deviation on the original books, but it has your female main protagonist solving murders. I mean, who doesn't love that? I flew through the first one. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna fly through this one too. It is 400 pages, but it's very I'm imagining it's going to be very fast paced, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, the third category of books everybody loves this time of year is your classic psychological thriller, like a classic, simple but great psychological thriller. And for that, I have two recommendations. First up, I have Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. Alice Feeney is so popular now because she's an incredible writer, but this is one of her first books, and I've had this for some time, a couple of years actually. I've been meaning to read it, but the hype around Alice Feeney is real. She writes really amazing thrillers and she writes really amazing psychological thrillers. So Sometimes I Lie is basically about our main character who is apparently in a coma, and she's in a hospital in a coma, and the whole story is her trying to figure out how she got there. She has consciousness, so she can hear what's going on around her, but nobody else of course knows that, and she's in a coma, she can't move, she can't talk. So she's trying to piece together the puzzle of how she came to be in a car accident that put her in a coma. It seems like a really nice, classic psychological thriller with, do you really believe her? And it has that trope of not so believable, slightly unhinged female protagonist. Another book that actually has been really hyped, but I personally think it's perfect for this category of a classic thriller, is Verity by Colleen Hoover. You will not hear much Colleen Hoover on this channel. To be fair, this is the only Colleen Hoover book that I have liked, that I have read and that I have liked. And this was truly a unique, creepy, classic psychological thriller. If for some reason you haven't read this and you've managed to avoid all the hype around it, this is interesting because this is about a writer called Lowen. And she's a struggling writer. She's broke. Obviously, all of our female characters for some reason are always struggling and broke, but that's a rant for another day. And she gets offered a job by Jeremy Crawford, who is the husband of a woman named Verity Crawford. Verity is a really, really famous writer, but because something has happened, she's no longer able to finish the rest of her books and fulfill her contract. So her husband hires Lowen to come into their home and finish the books that Verity was working on. And of course, Lowen, being Snoopy, decides to go through Verity's stuff, and things happen from there, secrets unravel from there, and creepiness starts there. So it was actually quite really good. I binged it, and I think it's perfect creepy vibes for fall. The next category is a creepy historical fiction with some elements of mysticism and magic. And for that, I have The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. Actually, even her Lost Apothecary would be really great. I really loved that book. I did start this one a few months ago, but I literally put it down because it was so good that I wanted to save it for the month of October. And I will be reading it this month. This is basically about a young woman who is trying to find out who killed her best friend, and she's part of a seance society, so she's training to be like a seance person. And this is set in mid-1800s in Paris, And so she takes her team and they decide to do a seance to figure out, to bring up the ghost of this dead friend or sister and find out who killed her. I personally don't want to know more about it. I kind of want to go into it blind. So feel free to look up the Goodreads description of it and reviews on it if you want to know more. But I think with mysteries especially, you gotta go in as blind as you possibly can. All right, a category that most people love, and for all the right reasons, are domestic thrillers. Now, domestic thrillers are perfect for the fall season. They are not too creepy usually. They don't have ghost vibes or, you know, anything gory. And I find that they're a lot more relatable, and especially because of the family drama element. So I have two recommendations here. One book that I will be reading the month of October, and one that I have read and in my opinion was a really great classic domestic thriller that unfortunately not many people talk about anymore. So the book that I have read a few years ago is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. Now, Celeste Ng is really famous now, but I read this a few years ago and I still have my copy. I thought it was so great. This is basically about a Chinese American family in the 1970s, about the parents Marilyn and James Lee, who are Chinese immigrants to the States, and they have these really high hopes and really, really big dreams for their daughter Lydia and how she's going to fulfill their immigrant dreams. But unfortunately, one day Lydia's body is found. She's found dead, and that's where the mystery starts, and figuring out what happened to this seemingly excellent scholarly student, and how her life ended. What I really liked about Everything I Never Told You is that it's not just like a really good thriller, but it's also just a lot about the lies that we keep within families from family members, and things about ourselves that we don't tell one another. Even when you think you know the person that you're living with, there's still so much about them that you don't know. And I thought that is very true and very poignant of real families, especially immigrant families, because a lot of children of immigrants live double lives. And I thought this was really, really great. And the book in this category that I will be reading in the month of October is Searching for Sylvie Lee by Jean Walk. I hope I pronounced that right. It sounds similar to Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, which I'm okay with, but this one sounds quite interesting. This is about Sylvie, who is, again, Chinese American. She's a daughter in a Chinese American family. She decides to visit her grandmother at her deathbed in Netherlands, but then she goes missing. Sylvie goes missing, and nobody knows where she is. And at some point, one of her younger sisters decides to travel to Netherlands to uncover what happened to Sylvie. And there she finds out all these secrets about her eldest sister, who on the surface seemed like the golden child, the perfect immigrant daughter, but there was a lot of secrets underneath. It sounds very cool. It sounds very interesting. These types of domestic thrillers that have this huge element of culture woven in, I find them so interesting because they really like hit the mark for me in terms of like complexity. All right, and the last category is a witchy rom-com. Now, if you've seen my September wrap-up, again, above as well as down below, you know that I read a lot of witchy rom-coms in the month of September, but there is a couple more that I would like to read. So these are not my only recommendations. I would actually recommend most of what I read last month, so check that out as well. But if thrillers and murder mysteries are not your cup of tea, I find that a witchy rom-com is the perfect genre to get you in the fall and the Halloween mood. There's just nothing like a rainy day, like a crisp autumn day where you sit down and you read about witches. And a rom-com is always lighthearted and it's so fun. So first up we have Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. I haven't heard many people talk about this one, so I am looking forward to reading it. But this book has been described as Encanto meets Hocus Pocus, and that just sounds great. But it's about a witch named Essie who lives in a really, really old house outside of London in England, and she lives with a whole bunch of witches, one being a dead one, in the same house since the 1700s. And you have a male protagonist, Josh Henderson, I believe, who is not a witch, just a normal human being, moves in and he inherits the main house, and so now he is the landlord for these witches, and he discovers that they haven't paid their rent since like 1800s. So there's right off the bat, there's a mystery and a lot of confusion. As you can imagine, there's romance between the two of them. But Essie is having apparently a really hard time controlling her powers and her witchiness. So I imagine we're going to see a lot of magic in this as well, and just a lot of fun family dynamics. Hence, I guess, Encanto reference. And that's all I know about it. It sounds like a fun, light rom-com, and I'm excited to check it out. And the next witchy rom-com that I will be reading in the month of October is Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. This one has been described as Sabrina meets the L Word, and again, what an amazing description. That alone just makes me want to read it, nothing else. But this is about our main character, Emily Harlow. She is a witch, but not a very powerful one, because turns out she has been away from her town of Thistle Grove for a while. So she returns home to her town to kind of resolve things with her family and learn more about her family history. And there she runs into a bunch of other characters, the other love interest being Talia, who seems to be a witch who does, I guess, dark magic, or does a lot of dark arts. And I imagine it's going to be a bit of enemies to lovers type of a trope. One of the comments on Goodreads says, this is John Tucker Must Die meets the Triwizard Tournament, set in a town that's mix of the vibes from Practical Magic and Halloween Town, and featuring a romance between two bi women. It is truly a delight. That sounds like a good description to me. It's good enough. I'm gonna give it a shot. All right, those are my list of categories and books that I think would make the perfect October TBR for you and for me. Let me know which category is your favorite, like which subgenre of books do you really love reading this time of year? And if you have, or if you do plan on reading any of the ones I have mentioned today. As always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for diversifying your reading and being inclusive in that, and I'll see you in my next one.